Hello, and welcome to my video explaining my Eternal Return Black Survival Improvement series. For this first video, it's going to be basically just a presentation, and the basic structure is I'm going to give an overview of what the series is, discuss the routine I plan on using to improve, and then discuss the key concepts I'll use to implement my strategy. So to give an overview of what this series is that it's basically me outlining the process I plan to use to improve at this game, documenting my improvement, and then sharing it with everyone. As far as my motivation for doing this, I just thought it would be, kind of interesting to do. I haven't really seen anything like this before. The closest thing that comes to mind is, sort of Unranked to X series, where, some high elo player will start with a fresh account and climb to high elo. But this is going to be focused much more around, I guess, a more realistic climb. Another reason for wanting to do this is I've decided that I want to get good at this game. Additionally, I feel like if I make this series, I will have to hold myself a bit more accountable and work harder towards improving at the game. And another thing that I think makes this interesting is that at this point, I would consider myself to basically still be a newbie. I've been playing for around a month, although not every day, and even when I do play, not necessarily multiple games. I have between 30 and 40 games on Kathy, and I've also tried some other characters with pretty little success overall. In solo normals, Kathy's the only character I've actually won on so far. I think this provides a good starting point to see someone that's relatively new at the game. So now I'm going to outline the routine I plan on using. Basically, I'm going to go for a walk, just get blood pumping, to get my body moving after having, sat for a while. Then warm up with a bot game just to practice routing, looting, that type of stuff, get the muscles going. And then do a 3-game block, where I'll play a game, I'll do a VOD review, make some notes, and hypothesize about things. And what exactly I make notes on and hypothesize about, I'll get into later. And I would like to make a shout out to Coach Curtis, who is the inspiration for most of this process, and much of it is taken directly from advice he's given. He is a YouTuber that does a lot of educational content for League of Legends with a particular focus on mid lane. So if you play League and you want to improve, and especially if you play mid lane, I highly recommend that you check him out. So as far as the components go for my plan, there are 5 key aspects. The first is exercise. The second are learning objectives. Then VOD reviews, survivor identity, and build/route refinement, which I'll explain a bit more in the next slides. So I think incorporating exercise will be important for me to improve. The main thing is that I find it is easier to focus if I do basically any amount of exercise as opposed to not doing any at all. Now, getting more into the meat of things, let's talk about learning objectives. Basically, the point of learning objectives are to have 1 to 2 specific elements of gameplay to really focus on hard and refine and try to improve while you're playing a game. A quote from one of Coach Curtis's videos is, if you come into every game with 1 or 2 things that you really want to refine or learn, this will keep you focused and allow you to take things from games even if you lose. Every game becomes a net positive. And obviously for self-improvement, if you can improve no matter how you perform, that's very valuable. Now, one of the big facilitators for improvement are VOD reviews. At a basic level, VOD reviews are just looking over recordings of a game that you've played. And so the motivation for doing VOD reviews is that you can take a lot more time to consider your options. You can more closely examine what you've done in the game. and then see if your hypotheses were correct. So, if you had certain opinions about skirmishing or fighting or which decisions might be best, in a given situation, you have more time to consider what might be best, what you can improve on, and how exactly you'll make corrections in the future. Additionally, you can look through the VOD with your learning objectives in mind and really just hone in on that and kind of filter everything else out. And this might also be a time that you take to plan what your future learning objectives are. And again, big shout out to Coach Curtis. The next component is survivor identity. At a basic level, this is really just recognizing that different survivors want to play different ways. They have different win conditions, they want to take different fights, they want to contest different objectives. This is not only dependent on the survivor, but also whatever build they're going, whatever routing they're taking, whether or not they need to contest Tree of Life, things like that. I don't really have the time or expertise to explain this in depth, but the main things for my purposes are that I plan on hypothesizing about, what the survivors I play want to be doing. I'm going to test those hypotheses and then refine them. So, one hypothesis I might have about Nadine is that if, a skirmish breaks out and I'm in the middle of farming animals, I would much rather finish that than immediately run over to try and third party. Or maybe I think that, even if I have the opportunity to third party, I don't need to go right away. If I'm in the middle of farming and there's a couple more camps that I could take, I should go ahead and take those first. And obviously, we call them hypotheses because they're most likely wrong or not quite right. And so that's where refinement comes in. This is where you go into a game, you test things out, you see what happens, see where it succeeded, where it failed, and then update your strategy or update your image of the survivor's identity, what they actually want to be doing. And lastly is build/route refinement. Now, I thought it would be good for me to come up with my own builds, even if they do end up similar to meta builds, for a couple of reasons. One is that I think I would know my build better if I made it myself. Another is that I think that it'll help me improve as a player if I'm actively thinking about what I'm building, why I'm building it, and why it might not be working or what it's good at. And I also just thought it seemed interesting. And I also just thought I would enjoy the process. So my general methodology is going to be to make a build, test it, give some educated guesses as to what's working, what's not working based off of my experiences, and then try to refine the build to cover up some of the shortcomings. Whether it be that I'm too squishy, there's not enough good food on the route, or other things like that, or maybe the inventory gets way too congested. Just different problems that might arise. And that's it. That's the plan I intend to be using. And if you made it all the way through, thank you for getting here. I'm sure it wasn't the most interesting video, given that it's basically a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm glad that you stuck around. And hopefully you like what I have coming next.